Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Live 1500. Well, 1500 hours, that is, because at the moment it is 3 p.m. here, Australian Eastern Standard Time, and you're watching us wherever you may be, either through YouTube. We're streaming live through YouTube, yes, through Shave the Man, and of course through Stray Whisker TV. And we're also streaming through Facebook, which is where you might be now. And if you are, well, I thank you. It's very kind of you to do that. Thank you, thank you. My apologies, my sincerest apologies for last week. I didn't turn up. It's just one of those things, wasn't it, really? I was actually working on my beard. I'm getting accustomed to having this thing, and I figured that I should stay home and have a little bit more beauty sleep, or whatever. Anyway. Now, if you're new here, then this beard probably means nothing to you. And if you are new, you can just put means nothing to me below. No, don't do that. Put in new so we know who's here and who isn't. And that way, when I call the roll, I mark off the roll, I can see who's been a very good person and who has not. Has been here in absentia. Brendan Walkley. Good afternoon, Brendan. How are you? Brendan says, I don't need to shave. I know, Brendan. I have shaved, actually. I've shaved under here. In case you're wondering, I just had a bit of a shave under here. I just, look, I'm trying new things all the time. You know, it's just, I can't. Look, if there's ever a time to grow a beard, now is that time, because I don't have to see people up close and personal, although I am seeing you up close and personal, hopefully, wherever you may be. A warm cheerio to David, James and all. Yes, hello to one and all. David, we'll have to get you on here very soon, probably the next couple of weeks or so. I'm going to go back to the coffee with Con, but this is a special edition. This is a special edition. Everything's special around here, including my coffee. I'm drinking an espresso. Look, I have too many of these a day. I keep saying that time and time again, but I love them. This is my performance-enhancing drug, caffeine. In the perfect delivery system, a glass. Glass is beautiful. Pardon me while I partake. Yes, so the Coffee with Con thing will occur again next week, but I figured that I should just depart from the usual, not so usual format and just present myself to you in all my bearded glory, I'm hoping. And we'll have a number of things to discuss today. It's not always shaving. People that know and follow this channel probably need to be scheduled. But, you know who you are. But I figured that we should just talk about a number of things that have been on my mind of late. Things that I've been thinking about, and I thought I should just share them with you because I feel that you're part of my extended family. That's pukey, isn't it? Anyway, you deal with it. You can deal with it in any way you like. I figured I should share them with you. I'm sure that some of you may feel similar, may have similar feelings about the sorts of things that I'm going to discuss today. I'll be discussing a book, an interesting book, The Intelligence Trap. But more importantly, I want to talk to you about why I'm talking to you about this. If you've been on social media of late, and let's face it, most of us are. In fact, you may be watching this on social media, so, you know, we're not going to shoot the messenger. There's been a number of things that I have detected and have picked up on that don't make me feel entirely comfortable with the direction that things are going in some very general and not so general areas of life. Social media has always been toxic. We know that. It has the ability to provide a wonderful service where you can share photographs and thoughts and things with other people, but it also has become quite an environment of late, I've noticed, where things are thrown around willy-nilly. Claims are made without people substantiating those claims, and because they feel that on social media they say those things, that's it. This is an age-old problem. right? We're not inventing the wheel here. It's just that I have taken the decision myself to remove myself from frequent social media involvement. I haven't taken a sabbatical. Obviously, I'm still here and I still jump on, but I'm not getting on anywhere near the amount that I used to. But then again, things aren't the way they used to be. So I've just found that there's all this, mud that's been slung around the place on all sorts of things. Everyone's an expert. Everyone has an opinion, and everyone is entitled to an opinion. What, however, they are not entitled to is their own facts. They may have their own opinion, but their own facts is another thing altogether. Anyway, I'm not here to preach or to provide a sermon of sorts, but I am here to share with you, and I'm sure that some of you may feel the same way, just some of the things that have just been appearing. Lockdown and quarantine and COVID has done something quite interesting. It's quite peculiar, really. What it's done is it has, in many ways, divided people that would otherwise have been quite close. Families have, members of the same family aren't talking to each other for one reason or another or whatever. And it's just nonsense, right? It's silly. But we have to understand why it happens. And I've had discussions with people over the last couple of weeks or so saying, why would someone who is so intelligent hold these views? Well, of course, the answer is intelligence has very little to do with it. Okay, if someone has a differing opinion to you, that doesn't mean they're unintelligent, right? It just means that it's not the same opinion as the one that you hold. And so this is something that has perplexed neuroscientists, no less, philosophers, policymakers, whoever they may be. The bureaucrats have thought about this. And it's something that once it starts to encroach and enter into one's personal life and you see heated arguments occurring, then I think it's time to sort of take stock, sit back and ask yourself, ask of yourself as well, right? Because introspection is very, very, very important. This is to think and to consider what it is that you feel or believe. Ask yourself the important questions. Now, of course, this is applied. You can apply this across all realms of human endeavour, of knowledge, of opinions on whether to purchase an item or not, or sporting team, whatever you want. Okay, there are general principles here. But to call into question someone's intelligence about this is something that that is kind of problematic, and that's when you have the sort of this sort of trolling that goes on, the comments over and over again, the same sort of commentary on and on and on and on. And so I'm just fed up, right? I'm just sick of it. I don't really think that it's worth having arguments with people over, although I know they happen. Of course, there is the other test. I mean, in Australia here we say, does it pass the pub test? Well, that's one thing. That essentially is really related more to sort of whether someone's behaviour, is inappropriate or not. Whether you think someone is, if someone clobbers an elderly lady over the head and steals her purse, then one would think, without any a person with all their faculties would immediately suggest that that is not the right thing to do. It's not a very good thing to do. It's just not good. So, look, what I'm talking about, and I'm sure you know what I'm referring to, and if you don't, well, that's probably even better, actually, in some ways, is all these opinions that get thrown around. Is that William Bacchus? Wow, he's quite pensive. He's thinking about things. William, you probably feel like you're at school again, and I hope that's not the case, but I just thought I would... Oh, Michael does feel like he's at school. Okay, hi, Michael. Yeah, well, sorry. I know, it can be quite a turn-off, but I have to say this. I have to get it off my chest, but also share with you some wonderful insights that I got from reading a particular book, which is quite timely, really. I mean, there's lots of books that are timely. There's works of fiction that have kind of become quite prophetic. There are books, studies that have been done, that date back 2 or 3 years, and yet they somehow uncannily seem to fit in nicely with what's been going on. What I will be talking about, though, is Tom Nash, because he's just come in and said, I feel like I'm at the Last Drop Cafe. You will never mention the Last Drop Cafe ever again in public. But on that note, I should have a coffee. Yes, the Last Drop Cafe was a previous life of mine. I go through, see, look, karma, right? Anywho, this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about The Intelligence Trap. Excellent book by David Robson. Have a look at it. If you're not into reading, read something every day. 2 pages, then put it down. Read whatever you can. Read, just pick up something and read. It's great. It'll expand your mind. It'll allow you to think about things that you perhaps haven't thought about. But I think it's very, very important. Myself, for everyone, I'm guilty as charged myself. I fall into these traps where I assume that just because somebody is intelligent, or just because something sounds intelligent, then it must be true, or it must hold that this, in fact, is it. It is, the undeniable. Please, I urge you to read this book if you can. Get it, download it, buy it. Go and see booksellers who have, in fact, go to an independent bookseller and purchase or order through them a copy of this book, which I think is great. And I'd also like to know in the comments below if you have read this book or if you've heard of it. You'll certainly have heard of it by the time we're finished with this particular live. This is something that is quite interesting. So what I've tried and distill the main points. There's nothing more tedious than sitting here and talking to you about a particular book. Let's drag out the points and discuss them as best we can. And the first one, of course, is, and I already said this, that just because a person is intelligent, it doesn't mean that that person thinks rationally. Now, there is a difference between rationality and intelligence, okay? Without getting into too much detail about what IQ is and how that is measured, this is, of course, a quantitative analysis of someone's intelligence. This is something that we should all think about and think about carefully. When you're confronted with an opinion that doesn't quite fit with yours, questioning a person's intelligence, apart from it being a cheap shot perhaps, is immaterial. The intelligence isn't it's the rationality that we should be looking at. And there are a couple of examples which come to mind, and it feeds into this thing called the confirmation bias. For example, I'll use shaving as an example. Let's say I had a budget of $100 to purchase a shaving brush. So I've walked into a store and I said, right, I've got $100 and I want to buy a shaving brush. This is it. This is my budget. I walk into the store and lo and behold, there's a brush in front of me that has been reduced from $300 to $200. Right? All of a sudden I think, gee, that's not a bad deal, even though this goes against what my budget was initially, okay? And I think, hang on, yeah, that's actually not a bad deal because it was $300. I only had a budget of $100. Look, I'll tip in another $100 and I'll buy the $200 brush. Think about that carefully. Think about it rationally, right? The other wonderful example, and it's you can find that in the book, but it's one that it's a sort of an anecdote that I really, really love. We have 2 very, very famous gentlemen here, Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who are historical greats. They were, in fact, friends for many, many years. Houdini, of course, was the great escape artist and well, should we call him a magician? Let's call him a magician. There's a shop in Vegas in one of the hotels there called Houdini's where you can buy magic tricks. And the other gentleman, of course, was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was responsible for producing some of the most intelligent crime fiction and creating Sherlock Holmes, no less. Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes came from this man. Now, it's undeniable that the books and the author is intelligent, right? Most crime fiction is based on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's work. Many have borrowed from that. Many have been influenced by that, if you like. Very intelligent man, but completely irrational. He was a nutter. His relationship with Houdini suffered. Why? Because he wanted to believe that Houdini was able to escape while chained up and cast into a pool or thrown off a pier somewhere. That somehow occurred because of spirits. So Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the very intelligent man who could put together these amazing novels, this amazing crime fiction, probably missed the boat when it came to rationality. So here we have an example where someone is clearly intelligent, but slightly irrational. In fact, they had a falling out. Houdini said, listen, enough with the spirit stuff. I'm a trickster. I'm an illusionist. The things I do, this is my craft. This is, it's something that is quite, he was stuck on this idea. He just wanted to believe that in fact, there's a very, very famous photograph, I should say, of, I think it was a double exposure photograph of fairies in the bottom of a garden, and Arthur Conan Doyle wanted to believe that these were real fairies. There was no trickery there. This is, he was certain that there was that. He wanted to believe this. He wanted to believe this. Now, I don't know that anyone would question the intelligence of the man. He was a very intelligent man, but was he rational? There is a difference. There is a difference. And we have some comments here. Yes. Thank you, Marjana. Welcome, Marjana, firstly, and nice to see you on here. And as someone who administers IQ tests for a living, yes. We should probably even have you on one day, and we'll talk about the Myers-Briggs and all sorts of other very, very interesting topics. But thank you. Yes. Please don't confuse the two. A person's opinion is one thing, and that's formed. There's a multiplicity. There's so many complex things that are going on when someone forms an opinion that it would be foolish and sort of reductionist to say that this is exactly, this is why this person has that particular opinion. They're unintelligent or they're dumb or whatever it is, which I have a real problem with. That's one of the points of the book. The other thing that the book has managed to, and these are based on findings from neuroscientists from Penn State University, from Harvard. I'll put a link to the book below. I know I always say that. I will do it in this case because I think this is worthy of your attention. The most overconfident people are often the most ignorant. What does that mean? Well, there's nothing per se wrong with being overconfident. But what it does, unfortunately, is that it produces these unintended or otherwise blind spots. So if I'm confident about a certain thing, mind you, I'm confident of nothing. I take the Socratic position that I say that what I know is that I know very little. The more I know, the more I realise I know nothing, right? So I'm a little bit reticent to sort of say, oh, yes, I'm an expert in this, I'm an expert in that. No. But you can see how this overconfidence can come across as being perhaps a little arrogant, but more importantly, ignorant. Why? Just because you were able to see patterns or you were able to understand how a particular concept worked in one area of life, it doesn't mean that you can transpose this onto other areas of life and assume, hey, look, I've seen this sort of thing before. This must be a hoax, or it must be fake, or this is real, or this is what I believe here. we need to take a more nuanced approach, I believe, to all of this. So it's something that really you'll end up in a lot of trouble if you don't consider your. I guess what I'm saying is that you need some humility when it comes to this, right? We need to adopt some humility. If somebody has an opposing view, perhaps you should say, well, what's the reason that that person believes what they do or proclaims what they proclaim, or all of those, whatever it is, whatever position they've adopted, rather than saying, oh, look, you're dumb, you're an idiot, you're unintelligent. This is very important. It's a very, very important fact. The other thing is, philosophers have, as I've said, long since discussed wisdom, but now researchers talk about evidence-based wisdom. Okay, we talk about wisdom. Philosophy comes from the Greek word philosophia, the love of wisdom. Wisdom is no longer enough. We now need evidence-based wisdom. In other words, not this pie-in-the-sky stuff, spouting and pushing a particular line without evidence. Because I'll use an example. If somebody holds an opinion and there is a lack of evidence, then I also am afforded the same luxury to not believe them if they don't present their evidence. You haven't been able to provide evidence, and so I can then say, well, look, I don't know about that opinion. I might have to look at that a little bit carefully. Think about the evidence, okay? Think about the evidence. Think about why someone would say what they say. These are important factors, and these are all to be found in this book called The Intelligence Trap. There are no affiliate links. I'm not associated with the book. I do not know David Robson, although I'm sure there'd be interesting dinner conversations with David. The other thing, while overconfidence in your intuition can end up with disrationalia, this sort of confirmation bias, look, I know I'm now looking for evidence that will fit my theory. I have an opinion about something, and that opinion, remember, is formed. It's very complex. There's a lot of layering that goes on. There's things. Opinions are experiential. They're contextual. So to be able to just write them off is, I think, is a little bit dangerous. Having said that, sometimes it can be helpful in decision-making because your intuition will allow you to move further and further down that rabbit hole or that wombat hole. Hi, Marjana, I'm looking at you. Anyway, it's a private joke. I shouldn't do private jokes, should I really? No. I'll stop now. Right. So these are the things that we can consider. In other words, we require a bit of humility, a bit of decency. Think about why people are saying the things that they're saying, rather than doing the old eye roll and saying, oh, yeah, of course you'd think that, whatever. That's what this book is asking us to do. That's what it's inviting us to do. Now, this is an interesting one, and I like this one. It's kind of... these opinions are formed through this sort of familiarity and fluency. And this is how we evaluate a truth. In other words, if I'm kind of familiar with this concept, or I've sort of seen this thing before, it must be true. The comedian Stephen Colbert actually coined a term, truthiness, and he was referring to politicians from the United States who possessed this knack for truthiness. That just because they believed certain things, or they were familiar with certain, in other words, these politicians believed certain facts, and they were quite fluent in those facts, that they somehow gave them an air of truth. It's kind of, you repeat something over and over again that you'll definitely believe it. And of course, if you repeat it often enough, we know about that from the lessons of history, then you will most certainly be open to manipulation and to accept it willy-nilly, holus bolus even. So this truthiness, this Colbert, it's interesting that Colbert would come up with truthiness, but I mean, he's a comedian. Of course, comedians hold up a mirror to us and allow us to think about things. So it's Think about that. Think about the truthiness of statements. Does this kind of ring true because I wanted to, or because it looks familiar to something, it sort of resonates with me because there were things in the past that may have, I know this sounds intangible and very abstract, I'm sorry, but I could give you an example, but I don't want to because it's enough. I've polarized enough people. Anyway, just think about those things. And that's what the book also invites us to do, to think carefully about those things. So general intelligence, of course, underpins good thinking. You need intelligence to have some good thinking. But there are other traits and habits that help that flourish. And this is why I often say that intelligence has some part, but not all, to do with the person's opinion. For example, empathy, compassion. These are words that may induce or bring on a bit of nausea for some people, but these are things that are important. Being compassionate, taking the other person's perspective, thinking about why is it that person has come up with that opinion? How have they formed that opinion? What do they feel? Perhaps I should take their, walk in their shoes for a day. That's what that's encouraging us to do, and I think that's very, very critical. The other thing which I found quite interesting, and I'll end it on that, and then we can have questions or comments. I'd like to hear your comments. Now, this is something that's counterintuitive to Westerners, and by Westerners I mean people that live, sort of Europeans, North Americans, Australians, and so forth. But confusion and struggle actually assists the learning process. Imagine if you were never ever confused or you never ever had to struggle. Learning would be kind of sterile. And the reason I say Western is because some of the very interesting work that was done and highlighted in the book was they looked at Japanese culture. For example, the Japanese, you may be surprised to hear, don't believe in rote learning. They believe in sitting down and just learning things by rote. I know some people might think, well, hang on, I've often heard that they would sit there and do hours and hours of rote learning. No. They believe that experiences should be lived, short, and learnt from when one makes a mistake. In the West, we say this is a chunk of knowledge or an experience. We need to make the most of it. And if we've made a mistake, try not to repeat that mistake. In the Japanese culture, they try and learn from those mistakes. This requires a humility. So I guess what I'm saying is that if we lack humility and compassion and all those other things for other people, then there's no amount of arguing or getting into a conversation about whether one thing exists or not, or whether one thing's good for you or isn't, is going to get any cut through. You need to have compassion. You need to ask yourself firstly, and then ask of yourself, what experiences has that person had, and why have they formed the opinion they have? Not to completely ridicule or cast them aside. Look, folks, this is the book. It's called The Intelligence Trap. This is the coffee. I'm going to drink some now. Let me know if you've read this book or if you've heard of it. Please put in the comments below. I won't be too happy. We'll go through it and see. Good afternoon, Paul. Now, there's a bookseller from one of our local booksellers from the beautiful Lithgow, the town of Lithgow. Reader's Heaven. Go there. We have a number of comments here. I'll just try and get through all of them. Hello from Arizona. Hi, Paul. How are you? Okay, Wesley. Now, Wesley had his birthday, isn't it? Wait a minute. Am I watching an Aussie Sean Connery or is that Con? Well, it's funny you should say that. That's a poor Sean Connery, sorry. It's not bad, though. I'm sure you'll like it. No, it's not Sean Connery, it's Con. Look, as I say, I don't know. You can let me know what you think of the beard. Some people hate it. Others don't. Fochi Salgado. Hello, sir. How are you? Yes, I note that you were a little bit upset because you missed the live last week. Yes, I'm terribly sorry. Look, to err is human, and I am that, contrary to popular belief that I'm actually human. Yes, I am human. What else do we have here? This, as in this, or is it all of this? I don't know. I'm not sure what this means, but who else have we got there? I think we've got, is it Tanya? We've got Tanya there. Hello, Thomas. How are you? Or should I say Guten Tag? I'm sure you're in Germany. I'm sure. Hello from Tanya and Ingrid. Hello, Ingrid. Hello, Tanya. Lovely to see you on the live. It's very nice of you to join this afternoon. I know I sort of went on a bit, but hey, it's one of my passions. It's not just about shaving or non-shaving in this case, but it's also about experiencing life in its fullness. If there are any questions or comments, let me now know. Otherwise, I will disappear. We've used enough bandwidth as it is. I guess the takeaway from all of this is that if somebody's got a differing opinion, or somebody has not, in your opinion, considered all the evidence or can see your point of view or whatever, perhaps we should just be a little bit more compassionate and just take another person's perspective. It's about taking the other perspective, and I'm sure that places like Facebook and social media would be a little less toxic. Just can't help ourselves. I don't know what it is, and I don't know where all of this is going to end up. Not that if there was an end point, I don't know. I'm not actually entirely comfortable where that end point would be, but it's certainly producing some very disturbing trends. For example, I read today that Instagram has admitted quietly in a report that they are causing a whole lot of mental issues for young teenage girls because the girls just don't feel good enough. I mean, serious, really? This is filters after filters, pictures after pictures, and these poor young girls just aren't feeling good enough about themselves. So, I mean, that's another side. This is a mental health issue, but it's also one that I'm just wondering if there was a real life analog type of Instagram. I can't think of one where, I don't know, posters on a street as you walk by. Would you be putting up the sort of stuff and displaying it publicly like that if it wasn't on this electronic platform? I don't know. Anyway, it is rather disturbing. I hope that this has sort of given you another perspective on this trap that we fall into, calling people unintelligent if they don't agree with our opinion, without having considered all the evidence that lay before them. There's all sorts of things. I mean, I don't want to get into all the confirmation bias and, if you put too much effort and time into something, for example, even the sunken costs, if you've spent a lot of time and energy in something, then you're going to go through with it. If you've said that, I don't know, the earth is flat, and then you somehow do an about face, if you've invested enough time and effort and put yourself out there on social media and said that, then you're in it, right? You've either got to go silent, just leave the room quietly, or somehow eat humble pie and say, look, given the evidence and given all the information that was laid before me, I've kind of changed my mind. And that's fine. That's a good thing. That's such a good thing. But I guess what I'm saying is that humility and compassion and thinking about other people and why they hold the opinions they do has nothing to do with their intelligence. I know some highly intelligent people that are highly irrational. I've been irrational. I've probably been intelligent too sometimes. Anyway, that's me. Thank you to all of those of you who have taken the time to join us on the live. What have we got here? Paul Phillips, what has Paul said? He said, thanks for the nod. It's a cracking book. Yes, and here is the book. Let's crack. There it is, The Intelligence Trap. by David Robson. Go out and get it. I'm not a bookseller. I don't sell books. Oh, that's a lie. We used to sell some books here, but they're more on style and all that kind of thing. No, just have a look at it. This will revolutionise your thinking and allow you to make wiser decisions. It's basically saying, look, guys, take a chill pill. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't jump on people if they don't agree with your opinion. There are reasons that they may not agree with your opinion, and those reasons can be quite complex. So I guess it is here that I must say goodbye. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I know that these during lockdown, particularly here in Australia, that we're kind of over it, really. It's over it. But I figured that I should just jump on and say hello to all. Thank you if you're a first-time viewer and participator. I really appreciate it. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm sorry if you tuned in expecting shaving, beards. Look, it's all part of it, really. It's all part of the picture. It's all part of the picture. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you. Be kind to one another, please. Don't bring intelligence into it. Don't bring intelligence into it. Bring compassion and empathy into it. That's it for me. Bye-bye.